That year, the animals worked very hard, like slaves, but they were happy while working. They did not complain or try to avoid work because they knew that everything they did was for their own good and for future generations of animals. It was not for lazy and stealing humans. During the spring and summer, the animals worked 60 hours a week. In August, Napoleon said there would also be work on Sunday afternoons. This work was voluntary, but if any animal did not join, their food would be cut in half. Even with all this work, some jobs could not be finished. The harvest was not as good as the year before. 2 fields that should have been planted with root vegetables in early summer were not planted, because plowing had not finished in time. The animals could see that the next winter would be difficult. The windmill caused unexpected problems. There was plenty of limestone, sand, and cement on the farm, so materials were ready. But the animals didn't know how to break the stones into small pieces, because they couldn't use tools like picks or crowbars. After many weeks of trying, someone had an idea. They could use gravity. Huge rocks were tied with ropes and slowly pulled up a hill by many animals working together. At the top, the rocks were pushed down and broken to pieces. Moving the broken stones was easier. Horses carried them in carts, sheep dragged smaller stones, and even Muriel and Benjamin helped using an old cart. By the end of summer, they had enough stone to start building. The pigs supervised the work, but building the windmill was slow and hard work. Sometimes it took a full day just to move one rock, and sometimes the rock didn't even break. Nothing could have been done without Boxer. He was so strong, it felt like he had the power of all the animals combined. When a rock started slipping and the animals were afraid it would roll down the hill, Boxer always stopped it. Watching him work, with sweat all over his body and his hooves digging into the ground, made everyone respect him. Clover often warned him not to work too hard, but he didn't listen. His 2 sayings, "I will work harder," and "Napoleon is always right," were enough for him. He even asked the rooster to wake him up 45 minutes earlier in the mornings. In his little free time, he went alone to the quarry, gathered broken stones, and carried them to the windmill. Even though they worked very hard, the animals were not in bad condition that summer. They didn't have more food than in Jones's time, but they didn't have less either. Not having to feed 5 greedy humans made a big difference. Also, the animals' way of working was often more efficient. For example, they did the weeding better than humans. Since no animal stole anything, they didn't need to build fences, which saved time and effort. But as summer went on, the animals noticed they were missing some things. They needed oil, nails, string, dog biscuits, and metal for horseshoes, none of which could be made on the farm. Later, they would also need seeds, chemical fertilizer, tools, and machines for the windmill. No one knew how they would get these things. One Sunday morning, when the animals gathered to receive their orders, Napoleon told them that he had made a new decision. From now on, Animal Farm would trade with the nearby farms, not for business reasons, but to get important materials needed for the windmill. He said the windmill was the most important thing. He planned to sell some hay and part of that year's wheat, and if more money was needed later, they would sell eggs, which could always be sold in Willingdon. Napoleon said the hens should be proud to help with this sacrifice. Again, the animals felt uneasy. They remembered rules from the beginning: never trade, never use money, never deal with humans. All animals thought they had agreed on that before, but they weren't fully sure. The 4 young pigs who had spoken out before tried to object again, but the dogs growled so loudly that they went silent. Then the sheep shouted, "4 legs good, 2 legs bad," and the moment passed. No animal would need to speak to humans. He would take full responsibility. A man named Mr. Four, and with Zico, Whymper, a lawyer from Willingdon, would be the contact between Animal Farm and the outside world. He would visit every Monday for instructions. Napoleon ended with "Long live Animal Farm," and after singing "Beasts of England," the animals went back to work. Later, Squealer went around and told everyone not to worry. He said there had never been a rule against trade or money. It was just a lie from Snowball, or maybe something they dreamed. He asked if they had any proof. Since there was nothing written down, the animals believed they had been wrong. Whymper came to the farm every Monday as planned. He was a small man with whiskers, clever enough to see that he could earn money from Animal Farm. The animals didn't like him and avoided him, but when they saw Napoleon giving orders while Whymper stood on two legs, they felt a little proud. Their relationship with humans was changing. Humans still hated the farm and believed it would fail. They talked in pubs and used diagrams to show the windmill would fall or never work. But they had started to respect the way the animals ran the farm. Cool had moved away. The only human contact was through Whymper. But there were rumors that Napoleon would soon make a business deal with either Mr. Pilkington or Mr. Frederick, but never both. Around this time, the pigs moved into the farmhouse. The animals thought there had been a rule against this too, but again, Squealer convinced them there wasn't. He said the pigs needed a quiet place to work, and that the leader he now called Napoleon, the leader, deserved to live in a house. Still, some animals felt strange about it, especially when they heard the pigs were eating in the kitchen, relaxing in the living room, and even sleeping in beds. Boxer said Napoleon is always right, as usual. But Clover thought she remembered a rule about beds. She went to the barn to read the 7 Commandments, but she could only read a few letters, so she brought Muriel to help. Clover asked Muriel to read the 4th commandment because she thought it said animals should never sleep in beds. Muriel read it carefully and said it actually said, but since it was written there, she accepted it. Just then, Squealer came by with a few dogs and explained the situation. He said that there had never been a rule against beds, only against sheets, which were a human invention. The pigs had removed the sheets and now slept between blankets. He said they needed the comfort because their brain work was tiring, and he reminded them they wouldn't want the pigs to be too tired to do their duties, or worse, bring Jones back. The animals agreed and didn't mention it again. Later, when it was announced that pigs would now wake up an hour later than the others, no one complained. By autumn, the animals were exhausted but proud. It had been a hard year, and food supplies were low after selling hay and corn. But the windmill made it all feel worth it. It was now almost half built. After harvest, the weather was dry and clear, and the animals worked harder than ever. Boxer even worked at night under the moon. In their free time, the animals walked around the half-finished windmill, amazed at how strong and straight the walls were. Strong winds came and made it too wet to continue building. Then one night a terrible storm hit. The buildings shook, roof tiles blew off, and the hens woke up screaming from a bad dream about a gunshot. In the morning, the animals found the flagpole knocked down and a large tree torn up, but the worst was yet to come. They saw something that made them cry out in despair. The windmill had been destroyed. They all rushed to the spot. Even Napoleon ran ahead. There, where they had worked so hard, was only rubble and broken stones. Napoleon walked back and forth silently, then suddenly stopped and shouted, "Comrades, do you know who did this?" Snowball. He claimed Snowball had snuck in during the night and destroyed the windmill to get revenge for being thrown out. He said Snowball was a traitor and announced a death sentence on him. A reward of half a bushel of apples, or a full one if he was caught alive, was offered. The animals were horrified. They couldn't believe Snowball would do this. But then they saw pig footprints in the grass near a hole in the hedge. Napoleon sniffed them and said they belonged to Snowball and that he probably came from Foxwood Farm. He then shouted, "No more delays. We begin rebuilding today. Through rain or shine, we will finish the windmill. Long live the windmill. Long live Animal Farm."